Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this third episode of the series. In this series, we talk to the authors from around the globe and try to inspire the writers who are struggling to get published. So, today we have with us Nghi Vo. She is from Michigan. She's the author of best selling novels like The Tiger Comes Down the Mountain and The Empress of Salt and Fortune, and her recently released novel The Chosen and the Beautiful. She was born in Illinois and now she lives in the shores of Lake Michigan. So, without much delay, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the series and thanks for joining us on this series.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
the first question is, when did you first realize you want to be a writer?
I wanted to be a writer fairly young. Even before that, I had this sort of fascination with books as objects. I was a little kid, and my parents were very startled because I kept picking up books. Like, I liked the physicality of them, I liked touching them and holding them before I could read them. And then when I got a little bit older, I realized they didn't just come out of nowhere. They didn't just live on the floor at my parents' house. They weren't just, they didn't just populate in stores. There were things that people made, and I realized I could be a part of that. And so that was sort of, and that was pretty young for me, actually.
Yeah, we can understand that your love for book comes from childhood only.
Yeah, yeah.
The next question is, can you tell your listeners about the ups and downs you have faced in your life as a writer?
There are so many great ups for being a writer. I haven't been a professionally, traditionally published writer for very long. I've really only been doing publishing books where other people can see it very easily for about a year and a half. But I mean, I think the ups are pretty obvious. It's the idea of creating a story and then handing it to someone and realizing that it made them happy for, even if it was only for a couple hours, that it made them happy. And of
Yeah.
course, there's talking with interviewers like you because, I mean, writers, we're very vain. We love talking about our work, we love talking about ourselves. When it comes to the downs, some of it is the reality of really learning what publishing is. One of the reasons why I got excited about writing when I was young was because you didn't need anything to do it. You needed, like, I'm a little kid, I need a pencil and I need paper. I think it never occurred to me how much easier it is to be a professional writer if you have things like a spouse who supports you, a family who supports you, people that you know in writing, and that can be very demoralizing if you come in and you don't know anyone, and you're still trying to work a day job. Like, I was very fortunate. I was working third shift at a tech center, and between the calls, I could do a lot of writing, and that was one way that I started working as a professional writer. So it is both a wonderful thing and it's also a business, and I think it's
Yeah.
part of what I really had to come to understand, and it took a bit.
Yeah, it's just a curiosity based question, or you can share it for the young writers who are struggling. So, did you faced any issue in publishing? Like in India, we face like authors who are new, they don't get ideas from where they can publish their book or what are the challenges that a person can face?
Um, the thing about that, at least in the United States, publishing is very, very much a business. There are people who are trying to make the most money that they can, and that is the world we live in. But the thing to remember is that you have to find the people that are willing to take a chance on you. Um, like my agent and my editor, my agent being Diana Fox, my editor being Richie Chen, they had no idea who I was before I sent my work to them, and I don't think I really appreciated it at the beginning. They looked at my work, and it is a little strange. It's definitely a little strange, but they were willing to fight for it. They were willing to say people should read this, and um, and I think when it comes to submission, I think you have to cast as wide a net as possible, and at the same time, you really have to understand what you're worth and how important the work you're doing is. Because if you're a young writer, if you're a writer who has never seen your story before, I think that the world needs you. Not maybe not the publishing industry.
Yeah.
They're two different things. But if you have a story that is important to you, there's a good chance it's important to someone else. And fighting that fear and fighting people who would rather just keep publishing the same thing over and over again from the names they've heard before 5 or 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
Taking that chance is very difficult and it can be very heartbreaking. But the important thing is to keep believing in, not even believing in yourself, which is important. Believe in how important your story is.
So this is again a question for young writers. Uh,
Mhm.
is there any difference, like the main difference you can share about the self-publishing and casual publishing, like ordinary publishing?
The difference between like I haven't done a great deal of self-publishing. I have done more ghostwriting.
Yeah,
I started my career as a ghostwriter, as a copywriter, as an advertisement writer. And at the end of the day, it is all about kind of work you're doing.
yeah,
As a traditionally published author at the moment, I think that there is a lot of work that, like I said, my agent and my editor and Door.com, which is my publishing company, there's a lot of work that they take on that I do
yeah.
not want to do.
This question
They set
basically,
up
yeah,
interviews for me, things like that. But yeah, no, it's the big difference is how I spend my time and how much of my own management and bookkeeping I do, because part of being a writer is doing your own bookkeeping, like, making sure, like in the United States, taxes to be a self-employed artist are very high. It's easily about a fourth of what I make. So every month I have to look at that. I'm like, okay, a fourth of this is just gone. I can't look at it. It's not real. It belongs to someone else. And then I can move forward with, it's like rent, things like that.
uh, okay. So the next question is, for you, what makes a great story?
For me, it's so many different things. There's so many different and great stories out there. Um, and I think that I don't even know if it's an individual thing because, there are stories that I don't like. Usually, if the writer has been passionate about what they're talking about, they know what they're talking about. I'll find something that I really like in it. But I really like strong characters. I like characters that change because that's the thing that humans do.
Yeah,
Every day we
they
change. We change a
grow.
little. We change a lot. That's so wonderful to see, like, in a story, because I mean there's stories where the character doesn't change and you're just are there to hang out with them for however long it
Yeah.
takes. But I love it when things happen to them and they realize that something has happened inside them as well, internally and externally.
Okay. Basically, this is just a, issue for India because most Indian writers are romantic writers because they don't get into that mythology writing or different genre because in India most of the readers are also like romantic readers. So this is the issue
Mhm.
in India. So next question is, who is your inspiration? Like the writer who has inspired you to be a writer, or the person who has inspired you?
There have been a lot of wonderful writers who have sort of led me to being the writer that I am. But one that comes to mind is definitely Seishonigan, who was a writer who was living and working around about 1,000 years ago, about the same time that Murasaki Shikibu was writing the first novel, The Tale of Genji. And The Tale of Genji is this deeply romantic, magical, sweeping court drama. And then you have Seishonigan, who was writing her diaries at the time, and that's what we have from her. Even 1,000 years later, the Pillow Book of Seishonigan. And her diary is so chatty and gossipy and fun. And as she writes it, you get an idea of who she is and what she thinks of the world. And I just think that is one of the most important things that a writer can do, which is to show people the way that the world looks to them. Shonigan was a court lady. She lived in a very privileged atmosphere. She was very wealthy. She had a lot of luxury compared to
Okay.
women of the time. And I think that's and showed us what the world looks like to her, not to an emperor or not to a soldier, specifically her world. And I just think that's such a wonderful, special thing to have, just even 1,000 years after she is gone.
So I should look into that because is it available in India or not? Because from you, I think it is interesting. So I should look into it.
Oh, it's great. It's
Yeah.
wonderful, and she's so mean, and she's so much fun.
Yeah. So the third question is, who is the person in your life who has inspired you to be like the person who is close to you in your life?
When it comes to inspirations, it probably is my younger sister. My younger sister is Tina Vo, and she is a professor at the University of Las Vegas. About my sister is that she works with science education. Her entire career is devoted to the idea of teaching children science more effectively, making them interested in it, making them very engaged with it, making them realize that science is a part of their world.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think we take for granted, especially as we get older. We don't really think about what makes people interested in science. My sister does. She thinks about, well, why is it that at a certain age, so many children think, I'm not interested in science, or I'm bad at math, or I can't. And her point of view is that children very much can, but they have to be encouraged. They can be taught better than we teach them now. And I just think that is the
Yeah.
coolest thing. She works very hard to try to bring science to people who might otherwise lose
Yeah.
it as they get older. So
S-
she's basically teaching people to teach better, which is really wonderful.
so the fourth question is, uh, what do you do when you are not writing, basically?
When I'm not writing, I try to make sure I stay away from my computer as much as possible because I spend so much time writing and editing and trying to talk to people. And I'm like, no, it's enough computer time, you know. So let's see. I bake, I sew, I cook, I hike. At the moment, what I'm doing right now is I'm messing around with plants because my mom was very big into plants when I was younger, and I'm just not very good at it. It's really hilarious because right now I have this wonderful little plant and I love it, but it's growing out of the pot and then it took like a very sharp left. Now it's trying to go up again, so I don't know how to fix that. So I think that right now my hobby is trying to fix my plant.
Yeah. So what kind of cooking you do? This just a casual question.
Oh, with the cooking, try to do a lot of Vietnamese cooking like my parents do. I've been sort of playing with historical cooking, which is interesting, which is, how people were cooking like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, or, what kind of cooking can you do with just a fire, for example? And the answer is a lot, but you have to be so patient, and I am so grateful that I have a gas stove, and I'm like, oh, look, the fire just happens, and that's thank goodness, you know?
So
And
you
it's
are
wonderful because yeah,
uh,
cooking is history, and everyone has eaten, and I think we eat. I think we eat better than we have ever have in history. But it's sort of exciting to think about where food is going to go, like in the next couple hundred years. Like what
yeah.
is going to be unrecognizable in a little bit.
So we can say that MasterChef author is here.
I don't know about that, but I'm trying my best.
Okay. So next question comes in. Uh, any short story from your life which you think can inspire other writers?
I'm trying to think of. I don't particularly see myself as a very inspiring person. I do my job, and I try to do it as well as I can. But when it comes to inspiring moments in my life, I would have to say that the first novel I ever wrote was something called Siren Queen. I wrote it, several years ago, and I entered it into a contest. I got very, very close. It. I got the rejection letter back, and they're like, "You know what you're doing," and I'm like, "Oh, we didn't want it anyway." So I was pretty demoralized with that. And so I'm like, "Okay, well, it got close. I'm just going to start submitting it to agents, and I'm not going to look at it anymore. I don't work on it. I'm submitting it." Then while I was submitting it, I wrote Empress of Salt and Fortune very quickly in about I think I took about 5 weeks to write Empress of Salt and Fortune. And then almost immediately I sent it off to Rushi Chen at Tor and at Tor.com. And she sent me back this. I did not expect her to take it. It was something that I wrote very fast because I just wanted to write it. And she sent me back this the acceptance letter, and the whole time I'm reading, I'm like, wow, she's being so nice. Even if she doesn't want it, she's being so nice. And then I got to the end, and she did want it, and it was a wonderful moment. So, I mean, in terms of inspiration, I try to remember how happy I was in that moment, and how startled I was, and to remember that wait, sometimes things go well.
Yeah. So again, this is a curiosity raised question. So, what's your writing like schedule, like daily schedule for writing?
My daily schedule for writing is I spend about 3 to 4 hours actually sitting down in front of my computer, hands on my keyboard typing. And a lot of that just doesn't work. It's I write a lot of words and then maybe I get to keep some of them. The whole point is that I type fast enough. I have a lot to edit down. Like I might start with 44,000 words, and then at the end, maybe I get about 2,000 that works. And if I just do that fast enough, I can always edit it down to something. But a lot of my day, as a traditionally published writer, I'm realizing a lot of my day is taken up with keeping. Like I have to be doing a lot of editing. I talk with my agents and with my editors and professionals at Tor.com about what should I be doing today. So it's a lot more collaborative than I thought it was going to be. There's a lot more talking to people than I
Yeah.
thought it was going to be, which is wonderful. I have met some wonderful people, yourself included, and I've been given so many opportunities to reach out to people. But part of being a writer is being alone a lot. So it's a little unexpected. I'm like, what's happening? Why am I talking to so many people today? That's fine. So it's it was a bit of a jump from where I was before to what I'm doing now.
So that is fun.
Yeah.
So next question is information about your upcoming novel, if you can share.
Okay. Well, I just had The Chosen and the Beautiful come out, which is basically a take on The Great Gatsby if it's being seen by a queer Vietnamese American woman. I have the third Singing Hills book coming out, which is Into the Riverlands, which I think is going to be a lot of fun for people. Next year, I have Siren Queen coming out, and at some point, there will be a sequel to The Chosen and the Beautiful in novella format. Um, and that's about what I'm allowed to talk about right now.
Okay. Final parting word of advice for readers, fans, and people who are listening.
For young writers, especially, and for new writers, because publishing puts a lot of emphasis on prodigies, on people who are amazing right out of the gate. And I mean, I'm going to be 40 this year, and there's no time limit. There's no time limit on writing your first novel. There's no time limit on getting your first novel published. The important thing is you don't have to write every day. You do have to finish. Once you finish something, you can go back, you'll make it better on editing. Editing always makes it better. Don't be too upset if you finish something and you're angry at it because you have spent so much time and so much love and so much energy in it. It's hard to love it. It's hard to love it the same way that someone who only spends 2 hours will love it as they read it. So just keep that in mind. You might be very angry, but it'll be okay.
Yeah. So thanks for joining. Thanks for
Of
joining
course,
this series.
it's been great. It's been great talking to you. Have
Hope
a
to
good
see
night.
you. I hope to see you in future when you publish your third book.
Me too. You have a good night. Night.
Bye.